So here we are, it's the weekend of Halloween and I can finally talk about this thing I've been on about for a long while and all throughout this month. I'm so excited to finally bring it all to you because this was so important to me growing up. But over the years I've wanted to talk about it and other things have got in the way, other plans, other long projects I've been doing, etc. And then last year I looked it up, I was like, okay, this is the year. And then I found out it was the 30th anniversary this year. So I sat there for an entire year going, I can't wait to do this. I can't wait to bring this out for Halloween. I'm so excited. So what are we talking about? It's of course Ghostwatch, which was written by Stephen Volk and directed by Leslie Manning. It stars Michael Parkinson, Sarah Green and Mike Smith, as well as Craig Charles and a bunch of actors playing various roles of like kids and specialists and all that kind of stuff. There are two particular actors in this who unfortunately have been seen in a lot of other stuff, but most of them are unfamiliar. But this was released on Halloween 1992. And like I say, 9.5-year-old me lapped it up. I was fascinated with ghosts already. This just cemented that and made me a little more terrified perhaps in certain ways, but 39.5-year-old me has enjoyed rewatching it for this as well. I really sat there all throughout. I mean, it's very slow to start. I will say that. I'm not going to say that it's perfect. But once the tension kicks in, it doesn't let up. And there's moments that are just so well done. Considering this was BBC TV in the early 90s, what they managed to do and how they managed to achieve certain things was great. There were moments in it when I was like, that's difficult to do even now. I do have to give special praise to the three people behind me. Sarah Green is hiding behind me, I promise you, because they are not actors, first and foremost. Craig Charles was, so I don't really sort of give as much praise to him. But all of these three were television presenters, interviewers, things like that, and there are moments when they each shine. There are moments, of course, where Parkinson looks like he's on the verge of just grinning because he's so happy to be involved in the project, I would assume. But yeah, there's moments where he's really wrapped up in it. He's acting the role of a concerned host. Sarah Green's moments where she's telling the stories and sort of getting involved with family, you believe that she cares for these people. And Mike Smith's acting of the concerned husband while his wife is being tormented by some kind of spirit. It's just so well done and so brilliant, and like I say, hats off to it. Before watching this, I was trying to get a hold of the Behind the Curtains documentary. It was something that was released to coincide with the 20th anniversary. In the intervening 10 years, seems to have disappeared. There are some things up on a YouTube channel, but it's not the full piece. Now, whether I might be able to find something on Halloween itself, I'm crossing my fingers and maybe I can talk about that down the line. But even just without that extra knowledge and the documentary information, etc., I still was picking up so much stuff on here. I didn't catch when I was a kid, because I was a kid, that it was basically the Enfield haunting, just redone. They used the very similar setup and even stuff like the kids faking it, although it was both the kids, Margaret and Janet, in the original tale, whereas here it was mostly Suzanne. But they even include a photo that's a recreation or a reinterpretation of one from that famous Enfield case. Of course, the Warrens don't turn up in this, but you can't have everything, I suppose. But everything in the studio and things like that, I mean, the phone calls, now I listen to them, I'm like, yeah, that's clearly actors. But as a kid, again, I was like, oh wow, these people are phoning in and all of these things. It was pitched as a live production, but it wasn't at all. And in fact, when it was going out, when broadcast originally, the cast and crew were generally together watching it with everyone else and enjoying what was going on. But this is something that, it's not just me who has taken a shine to this. It's not just me who has grown up and always had this as something in the back of my mind that I really appreciated. There is a fandom out there, and there's very different names that they give themselves, so I'm not going to cement one here because someone will disagree. But they've started holding annual national seances, because that's part of the idea of this. The idea that the broadcast was inadvertently creating a seance. And all of these people watching and phoning in, etc., were participants in that seance, as well as the people present at Foxhill Drive and in the studio. And people recreate that every year. They time it to start at the right time. Some people have even included the original BBC start and end pieces that would have bookended sections. All of this, to sort of recreate the feel and sort of relive that moment of 30 years ago as it is now. And I love that idea. I love that people are still talking about it now, still appreciating it now, because this was so So good for its time. Remember, this was before the Blair Witch Project, before things like Derren Brown's Seance. Now, there's anecdotal evidence that says Sanchez and the other guy, who I've forgotten was involved in the Blair Witch Project, used it as inspiration, but they have shot that down. However, Derren Brown has gone on record, I think a couple of times, as saying that yes, this influenced or inspired his seance. And I love that. Because when I watched Derren Brown's Seance, which I might do another year, who knows, I did get that Ghostwatch feeling, and I'm glad that it was part of, it was his homage, I guess you could say, to this. This is very difficult to hunt down, unfortunately. It's one of those that, it's a BBC production from years ago. It's not like a big blockbuster film that you can just find anywhere. So hunting it down is a bit of a tricky affair, but I seriously recommend, if you can, getting a copy of it. Now, obviously, I've said about, its legacy and things like that, and there are two elements that are not so good about its legacy. Like everything, they did put it after the watershed, the time when more sensitive material, shall we say, can be shown, and the kids should probably be in bed, or kids of an age that couldn't handle it. But there were kids who stayed up, and, there were a lot of complaints about how terrifying it was. I mean, there was a lot of praise that came into the BBC as well. But there were cases, and it was the first recorded case, where people actually got PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, from watching it. Now, some may laugh and just go, how do you get PTSD from watching a TV show? But these were kids. These were, well, certainly minors in the eyes of the law anyway, I think teenagers, although I think there might have been a few younger. But obviously they're more impressionable and less able to separate fact from fiction, considering this was pitched like it was an actual live broadcast and it was all real. The defence that has been used by the BBC and the producers was, if we made it too obvious that it was artificial, the magic would have been lost. There'd have been no point doing it. It would have just been another drama. So they had to tread that line. I understand it. But the saddest case comes in the case of Martin Denham. Was 18, but thanks to learning difficulties and what have you, was more the mental age of 13. And he watched this, and 5 days later unalived himself, I think is the term that doesn't get any flags, unfortunately. Because there were noises in the heating. It was just faulty central heating system. But because it was like pipes banging, he was like, oh, the ghost must be real. And like I say, yeah, no longer with us. They did raise a case which was originally shot down, but an appeal was allowed. And again, that's where the defence of, if we made it too obvious, it wouldn't have worked, came from. I do think it's important to recognise that. The fact that it has had, yes, a positive lasting effect on a lot of us, me included, but it also left behind a less positive legacy. We do have to be mindful. We do have to be aware of what we're putting out in the world. And some people may find it difficult. A lot of people think that having to put trigger warnings on everything is just wokeism gone wrong. And to those people I say, there's reasons we do that. But I will end on the high. This was still great, and I really appreciate every person's effort in this. They all did their best to make it believable, to sell the story. And, okay, some of the acting wasn't great, but I didn't have many moments of genuine, loss of that sense of, of it being real. I could suspend my disbelief pretty much throughout, and that's testament to how well done this was. So like I say, hunt it down if you want, if you can, and give yourself a spook in a few days' time as of this going live. If you're watching this in the future, just do it around Halloween, okay? But that's all I want to say. So until next time, as always, thank you for watching, take care, and remember, don't have nightmares.
Autocue's working. Round and round the garden, like a teddy bear.